Have you ever had a dream, an aspiration, ambition, something you'd really love to achieve, but so far it's eluded you? The barrier is normally a blend of lack of self-belief, fear, imposter syndrome. It's these thoughts that stop people before they ever get started. But what if we could remove these barriers? What if we could dismantle these mental blocks? If we could do that, there's a very good chance that we could change some lives. This is our mission. Over the course of 90 days, we're going to help amazing people to take on their biggest, hairiest, scariest goals. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? This is mental. I'm Simon Hartley. I often describe that my background is sports psychology, but that sports psychology is completely the wrong term. It took me an embarrassingly long time to realise that it's really human psychology. Anything that applies to athletes applies to all of us. So very simply, I now call myself a coach. So my mission is to help people achieve probably more than they ever thought possible, to achieve their potential, to get beyond the little bubble, usually the bubble of self-doubt that holds them and constrains them, and help them achieve everything that they could achieve in their life, to become all that they could be. You know, if I can inspire people to do that, I'll leave this planet a very happy man.
So my name's Tony Underwood. I used to play around with odd balls on a rugby field and achieve some reasonably good levels at that. Then I went on to fly aeroplanes for 20 years, ending up as a captain on the Airbus A380. For the last few years, since giving up that career, trying to, sounds a bit deep, find myself, but trying to essentially find a new path forward and take that transition away from flying. And trying to encapsulate, and I guess that's what this for me is about, this challenge is, how can I encapsulate a sense of how I showed up as my best self, what allowed me to show up as my best self in those environments. But also in a sense of doing that, it's living myself as fully as I can because, and finding a way of showcasing those things in a way that allows me to find this new third chapter, if you like, of my adult life, away from rugby, away from flying, into what I do. And so trying to translate that into essentially around this thought that what I'm representing is the need for more people and to be showing more care, but not just care, but fierce care in any environment which involves people, which is everyone, everywhere. And how can we have more of that being modeled? And how can I help organizations to do that, not just internally, but also how they look at the scope of their role externally as well in communities and society, and the role of business in the wider sense, and it being a much more fiercely caring one.
So what is the big, hairy, audacious goal?
There's an element of trying to rid myself of some, if you like, barriers to some of my thinking to optimally perform, really. Yeah. And be the best version of myself, because I know I'm holding myself back. And it's just trying to uncover what those barriers are, to kind of free myself up. I feel I'm doing okay, but you'll know from our kinds of backgrounds, doing okay is kind of not what it's about for us. We're used to sort of striving to just do that a bit better and keep getting better. But even in that that statement about it's always been about being better, I think I've been coasting. I've been guilty of getting to sort of, reasonably sort of high levels of achievement by coasting.
Yeah.
And that will do if you're lucky and you're blessed with enough sort of natural talent. But how, especially when a lot of the work I'm looking to try and do at the moment it's not so much benefiting myself, but if I get really good at doing what I want to do going ahead, it's going to benefit a lot of other people. And I'd like to be in a position to be able to do that as effectively as possible.
Tony is describing a place where many people live their lives in their comfort zone. And, as he says, often we can achieve quite a lot without ever really pushing ourselves. But it does leave us wondering, what if we did push ourselves? What if we explored the edges and the limits of our potential? What might be possible? Many people would look at you and they would say, wow, Tony's played for England. Tony's represented the British and Irish Lions. Tony's been an A380 captain. He must be super confident. Yeah. He's got it all together. There's nothing he can't achieve. There won't be a doubt in his mind.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you know, it's a word I've come across, or this thought I've come across a lot recently, especially after some of our conversations, is this concept of balance almost, where everything in life always seems to be a kind of it's never black or white. Yeah. It's always grey. Yeah. It's the ambiguity of stuff. And it's just this sense of trying to always find a happy equilibrium with stuff. So the equilibrium for me with that statement is, I want people to understand that we're all ordinary people. Yeah. That, you know, the statement about just really ordinary people, just very fortunate to have done some extraordinary things. But for me, because of the environments that I was provided with to allow me to be extraordinary, you know? Yeah. But we can all achieve these things, you know? Since I stopped flying in 2020, I have been going around various iterations of what I can do. It has evolved over time and metamorphosized itself into co-founding Believe with a lady called Liz Byrne. Believe was started with a real clear sense of why, is because both Liz and myself have benefited from, if you like, mentors, providing the right environment and culture to allow us to be the best versions of ourselves. His name is Steve Blackie. And what Believe is an attempt to do is to create those environments for others, and especially in communities which need it the most, and for individuals that need it the most. So how can we pay forward this understanding about what Blackie showed us about what you need to do to create the right environment for people to flourish in? How can we translate that and provide that for communities? Now that was the why. How and the what is all Liz, to a certain extent. Not in terms of how, you know, we know kind of what we know what we need to do to create the right environment in communities, but what's the commercial sort of approach to that? And essentially that's where Liz comes from, is an understanding about there is a mechanism to which companies give in terms of corporate social responsibility and CSR and elements of social value, or just business sense to because they want to, just businesses doing good, responsible business ethics, all this stuff. And wonderful intent, but what there isn't is a real sense of a better strategic, more effective, more efficient way of doing it, and translating all that good intent into really good outcomes and impact. And that's what's missing currently. There's the current ecosystem to translate businesses trying to do the right thing is not working efficiently. So what we describe it is, how can we're helping organizations do good better, do good in a fiercely caring way, in a fiercely effective way. That's what Believe was created to do.
At the end of this 90 days, we talked about like the summit at the top of the mountain. You said, I want to be able to deliver a keynote. I want to be able to write a book, which really sums up who you are, the experience that you can bring. Within that, where do you see the greatest challenges?
Just in itself, having that sense of it's okay to write a book and feel that somebody wants to consume it. It's okay to write a keynote and somebody's want to come to pay something, to come and sit in a room to listen to what you've got to say. Yeah. Wrapped up in those two things, I guess, to that sense of just that flow at ease, that I have something of value to give to others. Yeah. That listen to what I've got to say. Why would anyone want to listen to me?
Yeah.
And I think it's that, back to that point, if I've got to that state where, no, I'm cool with this, I'm putting it out there that I've got something of value to listen to. That's for me, that sense of ease and flow, that I'm comfortable with myself and comfortable with what I have to offer. That, you put it out there in that way.
I was reflecting on this actually. When we first described what kinds of challenges people might want to take on, climb a mountain, swim across an ocean, all of those sorts of things. And the one that seems to be the scariest of the lot is to put yourself out there as an authority, to stand on stage, to almost be exposed in that way. Yeah. That seems to be the scariest prospect of the lot.
Yeah. And I say this having done some.
Yeah.
I haven't written a book, but I've done a few speeches and charged people for it, some sort of reasonably handsome sums of money in my mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of what I'm sort of projecting out there is kind of what people I've picked up from others about me and about my journey and about my coping mechanisms or sort of the breakdown of what elements went into how I ended up doing what I did or getting to where I am now.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really, if I really think about it deeply, it hasn't come from me. So elements of it has, but I want it to be as purely as close as possible to the essence of me.
Yeah.
Again, but and so I really feel when I go out there, this is, because where I feel I've made a connection to people when I have gone out there, it's because the elements of what I got to project has started to tap into that.
Yeah.
But I'd like it all to be that.
So by doing this, yes, it'll have an impact on your life, but it'll also have an impact on other people's lives.
Well, there's the big ass hairy goal, and for me, and that challenge for me is that, if I do this as well as I'd like to, chap called Daniel Priestley says this thing about the key person of influence. I'd like to be a key person of influence about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I can't even say what this is yet.
Yeah.
But I know in my heart it's about how well we as people, develop character and develop behavior, if you like, that promotes us being the best versions of ourselves and helping others to be the best versions of themselves, to be as a community and as a society.
Would it be fair to say you've got this sort of intrinsic knowledge that you've got something to offer, you just don't quite know what it is and you just don't quite know how to share it yet, but you know there's something in there, and if you can just get it out, it would be super powerful?
That's a very difficult thing for me to say yes to. And that's what I want to shed myself of, because yes, you're right, I think I do. Because I've been told enough times now.
Yeah. From my initial conversations with Tony, I really got the impression that he was looking for a way to build brand Tony. He needed to find a really authentic way of expressing himself, but in a commercial way, in a way that he could wrap into a package almost that he could sell and that other people could buy into. And that, I think, is a real challenge for a lot of people, particularly people who operate on their own, the sort of solo entrepreneur community, or people who act as consultants or coaches or go out and do speaking work. And that this was almost like the missing piece for him. When I look at how I've crafted keynotes and things like that, I've sort of done it in a safe-ish environment to start with, and then done it in a bit more of a public environment, and then done it in a very public environment, and then put the pound signs attached to it, taken it out there into the world, done it on a big stage, been paid the bigger bucks. And once I'm really confident that this stuff actually works and it makes a difference, then write it into a book.
Right.
Otherwise, if somebody reads it, do I know it's going to benefit them?
Yeah.
Not if I haven't tried it and tested it yet.
Yeah.
once I'm really confident in it, and this doesn't just work for one person, it works for a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and actually it's kind of replicable.
Yeah.
Then I can say, let's write it down, put it into a cover, because I know that whoever picks this up is going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
And my confidence scale always stretches from, I hope this is good stuff and it'll work, to I think it's good stuff and it'll work and it'll help people. I'm confident that it's good stuff and it'll help people. I believe it will, and I know.
Yeah.
How do I know? I've got the evidence.
Yeah.
Tony Underwood has already achieved more than most people could imagine. He's played professional rugby, played rugby for England and the British and Irish Lions, and in his post-rugby career has flown aeroplanes and ended up captaining A380s. And yet, Tony still has a massive challenge. Standing in front of an audience of people and speaking on stage is a thought that daunts him. So that's what we're going to help him with during this next 90 days.
You've talked about it with that word emotion. That's fundamental to me.
Yeah.
That emotionally, they need to be on a journey with me for that. How long is this as well? It's only a 7-minute, 10-minute. It's a TED talk.
Well,
keynote,
a TED Talk's
so 45
about 18.
minutes. Yeah.
A standard keynote's 45.
Yeah. So for that 45 minutes, I literally take them on an emotional roller coaster with me.
Yeah.
And I don't always think of the word entertain by I'm laughing with you, but I want them to laugh at some stage.
Yeah.
I'd like them to cry.
Yeah.
But I'd like them to be, connected with what I've got to say on an emotional, fundamental level.
Yeah.
Because feeling is, what it's all about, I think.
So Tony's 90-day challenge is sort of simple but not easy. He wants to feel in flow when he's speaking. So he wants to get to that position where he's a real confident professional speaker and have a book that he can build around his speaking work, almost put them in tandem so that they become almost like part of a package together, and that he can build brand Tony on the back of that.
Thank you so much.
We're off and running.
Awesome.
Yeah, we are off and running.
Brilliant.
Cool.
So I'm Nick Parks, and I'm a competitive swimmer, open water competitive swimmer. And my challenge is to be able to deliver a very emotive presentation from a trauma that I went through, and subsequently raise the awareness for the use of CPR and defib, and have an impact and reduce the numbers that unfortunately occur in the UK as a result of sudden cardiac arrest.
So Nick, what's the big, hairy, audacious goal? What do you want to achieve within 90 days?
As you know, I went through a pretty traumatic incident last year where I had a cardiac arrest, left this planet whilst in the middle of a race, and when I awoke, realised that my heart wasn't functioning as good as people perceived, indeed myself. Subsequently having open heart surgery, which really put me back on my backside, and it was like learning to walk again. I was astounded by the lack of information that was available, people being informed out in the bigger field of having the checks done on their hearts.
The race, if I'm right in thinking, was a swimming race.
Correct.
Open water swimming race.
Correct.
And you were pretty good?
Yes. Yeah.
World champion?
Yes.
So this isn't something that happened because you weren't fit, weren't looking after yourself,
No.
weren't healthy.
No.
This was because you weren't aware of an underlying issue that existed.
Correct.
Kind of an invisible time bomb almost.
Yes. So it was the 2023 GB National Open Water Championships at Rother Valley, and it consisted of a 5 kilometre, a 3 kilometre and 2 kilometre. I wasn't concerned at the time. I felt certainly invincible. Body was in a good position. Recently had a race out in Spain and performed really well. We started the race, got into 3 kilometres of the 5-kilometre race, crossed the other side of the lake, and my heart stopped. As a result of that, I started taking water on. I was drowning, and I now know that I was in cardiac arrest. Got me out of the water. The powerboat came very, very quickly, got me to the pontoon. CPR was given to me. I'd been dead 20 minutes. There was lots of concern. I was in a critical position. CPR was continuing. Defib was used on me. The air ambulance arrived and thankfully managed to intubate me. I'd taken on so much water that they got great difficulty trying to get water and debris out of me. Thankfully they did. They calmed me down, put me into a coma, and then I went to hospital and received a double heart bypass.
When I think about people who are standing up on stage delivering, some of them, their concern is that I'm not going to be good enough, that people might judge me. They might go away and, I'm seeing them whisper down the corridor going, oh, Nick wasn't very good, was he? All of that sort of stuff. And some of it's about, if I get this wrong, the message isn't going to land properly, the impact won't be there, they're not going to understand what I'm hoping they'll understand as a result of this. And therefore, they might not make the changes that I'm hoping that they might make. They won't see the opportunity. Is it one or the other or a combination? Where does the balance lie?
There's a combination. One, I do occasionally suffer from this imposter syndrome. Yes, I know I've risen to heights in my swimming, and I sometimes play it down, and it takes my coach or indeed somebody else to say, Nick, you are good. You can do this.
Yeah. I mean, some people would probably look at you and think, Nick's a world champion. He can't struggle with this sort of stuff, surely.
But I do, Simon.
Nick Parks has already achieved a massive amount in his life. He's a world champion open water swimmer. And yet, there's still a challenge that daunts him. The challenge to stand on stage and speak to an audience of people turns his legs to jelly. When you start to become a real champion for cardiac health, when you start to get this message out there, what impact would you like to see that having on people, on the world, on society?
To at least acknowledge the fact, might seem silly, that they've got a heart in there. It's hidden away and it's ticking along. But you can't see in there. It's a well-known fact that even youngsters now, footballers, there isn't an age definitive position where people can be honed in on to say, you're going to have a weak heart. It used to be 50 and up over, not getting into the actual data. But, I want them to be aware of that. So the far-reaching effects from that and getting it back out into public domain, I want organisations to be trained to use defibrillators, to undertake CPR and understand how to do it. And hopefully, there's a lot more awareness with individuals out there so they can indeed do it.
You're right. As you were saying it, I'm thinking, I'm sitting here just taking for granted the fact that it'll just keep beating the way I need it to.
Yeah.
Because it just has.
It just has.
And so it'll just be fine. Nick Parks is an incredible guy. I really want to help him to become a cardiac champion, but the route into it is to understand how to present and speak to an audience. And that's the thing that he really, really wants to be able to do. What about your confidence? Is it just from knowing that the content's good? Or do you get your confidence from something else, somewhere else?
My confidence needs to be nurtured, definitely.
Yeah.
Some others would say, I bounce with it. Again, that's having, from the work side of things, I can command a room with directors, etc. But we're looking at something here where we're putting a story across, and it needs to be right. I don't want people thinking, oh, well, I wasn't quite sure on that. What was Nick trying to be there? Wow, it didn't hit home. You know, if I'm going to do it because of me and the way I am, it has to have an impact.
Yeah.
Hence the champion word.
And this, I think, is a really good way to understand confidence. It's something that you grow and nurture.
Yeah.
Comedians, when they do this, do it in small gigs first. Back of a pub, back room of a pub, dozen people. Even the really famous comedians start there. If it's absolute garbage, it's a dozen people in the back of a pub that might have paid, I don't know, a £5 plus the drinks or whatever. No harm done. If I'm standing out on stage at Wembley Arena or wherever, I need to know this stuff is good.
Yeah.
So I've gone back of a pub, probably a couple of times, through to decent little small local theatre, through to bigger venue, and even the really good ones don't sit at home and sculpt it and think it's perfect, I'm going to stick it on Wembley Stadium stage or whatever. They make sure they go through the process so that when they get there, they know people are going to laugh at this stuff.
Yeah. I think when we sat down and we initially wrote it out, this is really easy, but then I realised that it was a mammoth task, just not only to get my story into some cognitive way, but also the interims, the organisation of the events, the people, the contacts, and I did it. I had to put it down and just leave it because my head was scrambled.
Many people have daunting challenges, things we've never done before. Naturally, we tend to ask, how the hell am I supposed to do that? If we know why we're doing it, we'll find a way. So our challenge is to take two incredible people on a journey during the next 90 days. These two incredible people both have the same challenge. They want to confidently stand on a stage and be able to speak to an audience of people. And yet both of them are looking at this challenge and thinking, this is the tough one. This is the one that really, really challenges me. This is where Plan B's come in handy.
With less than 24 hours to prepare, Nick presents for the first time, but is he able to overcome some curveballs that all speakers face?
I was prepared on the basis that it was going to be a presentation, a formal presentation with overhead projector, but that wasn't the case.
Want to take part and achieve your big, hairy, scary goal? For more information about the next series of This Is Mental and how you could get involved, visit thisismental.tv.